Let's bring in Florida Congresswoman Cammack. Congresswoman, always terrific to see you. You and other members of Congress control the power of the purse. And reading about, say, California's expansion of its state Medicaid to make eligible all the illegal migrants in that state. Well, the federal government funds 70% of that program. Why don't you starve that state for handing out health insurance to illegals?
Well, good to see you, Dagan and Sean. You know, watching those clips of Biden and Mayorkas, if my eyes had rolled any harder, they would have rolled out of my, because that is just total crap. I would use an adult word, but I know we're on television. So it is quite literally ridiculous that the president says he needs more money when he is spending more money on ridiculous programs that have no chance of actually accomplishing the goals or the mission that they have set out to do. He has been given more resources for the border and securing the border than in any other time in history. This is absurd. And when he says he wants more money, let us not forget that he's saying he wants more money to process illegals faster. Staggering fact that I think everyone should know that has been ignored is there are now officially more people coming in illegally through the southern border than there are children being born to American mothers. Let that reality smack you in the face. This is a crisis. It's a public health crisis, humanitarian crisis. It's a national security crisis. We have the power of the purse. CRs, these continuing resolutions where we rubber stamp Nancy Pelosi spending priorities, it is no longer an option. That's why I have never supported it. And we, in the next 17 days, approaching the next government shutdown, should not engage in another CR. We have to do the appropriations process, single issue bills, and secure the damn border.
And limit funding so it can't be used for these outrageous purposes. But I want to move to this because Mayorkas is talking about the reason people are coming to the country is because of climate change. No, actually, they opened the border up. They've allowed a pathway for people to come into Central America and get into the U.S. without much of a hassle. They get a free phone, they get a free flight or a free bus ride, maybe $5,000 to boot. Well, of course they're going to come, whether it's climate change. No, it's about the economics that America offers as opposed to the economics of their home country. And to think he can gaslight the American people to believe that it's climate change is outrageous, Kat.
No, it absolutely is. You know, I saw a clip the other day of a 20-year-old Moroccan kid who had been given a plane ticket to fly to Mexico and then illegally cross the border. He said he was going to drive for Uber in the meantime until he figured out what he wanted to do. People are coming from over 151 different nations. And as liberals are raging about how bad America is and how they want to fundamentally change it, let us not forget that, yes, 151 different nationalities are fleeing to our country because of the opportunity, because as we exist in this constitutional republic, we are a nation of equal opportunity, not equal outcome. That's what we're fighting for at the end of the day. And while California wants to do free handouts at the expense of their taxpayers, and Maryland wants to actually create a new board seat on their school boards that only illegals can vote for, that kind of nonsense is going to drive people from the middle of the political spectrum to vote for conservatives because they don't like what is happening in their communities. The open border policies of Joe Biden have turned every town in America into a border town. I know you guys have seen this all for the last couple of years under the Biden administration. There are real consequences, whether it's the fentanyl, the crime, the strain on social services, the education system that is in continual decline. We can all trace many of these issues back to the border.
Right. The Biden administration has stood by and watched babies drown and women being raped as they try to come to this country. And then they accuse Republicans of dehumanizing people. It's really something to listen to. Congresswoman, yesterday we learned about the resignation of Harvard's president, Claudine Gay, and you've gone on the record saying that the universities that refuse to condemn anti-Semitism should not receive taxpayer dollars. Claudine Gay has written a piece in the New York Times. I suppose they're worried about diversity, equity, inclusion being dismantled across this country. Amen. Is there anything Congress can do to starve these universities?
100%. And just like we have to play hardball on the funding element going into border negotiations and this funding fight in 17 days, we need to do the same with these institutions for higher education. There is no bureaucracy greater than higher ed. And when you look at how big the endowments of these Ivy League schools are, they have no excuse for how much money they receive in research and development dollars from a litany of federal agencies as to why they can't survive on their endowments if they want to run around and fly different nations' flags and all different things over the American flag. If they want American taxpayer dollars, then they need to act like an American university. And while we value freedom of speech, the former president, I should say, of Harvard, she has been caught red-handed plagiarizing other people's work. I read her op-ed that she dropped earlier today, and it was one of the most narcissistic, self-serving pat on the backs that I have ever read in my life. Harvard will be better off with her departure, but they have a long road to go in course correcting. And I say the alumni around the country, heck, the globe, they need to step up and start starving these universities that want to promote this garbage. And they need to say, you gotta tighten up. I mean, I don't think there's any other option than to cut the purse strings.
You know, Kat, they're not going to self-correct. And I think you're right. It's going to have to come from cutting funding from the federal side and the state side that gives all this cash to universities, but also the donors have to cut off their funds. And what frustrates me is that, you know, the anti-Semitism was exposed on college campuses, but the anti-Americanism has been going on for a long time. And so just because we're addressing a couple of heads of universities that are anti-Semitic, we really have to get to the root cause of anti-Americanism, which is just not at MIT, Harvard, and Penn. It's across the university system. And again, we have to have a hard look at where this rot is coming from, which is the universities, and how the Congress and the donors and the states can remedy what's ruining this country.
Absolutely, Sean. I mean, when you think about the FIRE rating system, where Jim Jordan and I are co-chairs of the Campus Free Speech Caucus, and that's not just to protect conservative voices, that's all voices. All opinions should be allowed to be heard and debated on our college campuses. But what has happened over the years is they've turned into essentially indoctrination camps of sorts, where if you are a conservative, you're shut down, you're silenced, you're yelled at, you're harassed, you're hazed. I mean, look no further than the videos you see from the last couple of years of different student groups that are denied student activity funds because they're tied to conservative causes. That's not right. We need to really examine ways that we can promote free speech across the board on these campuses to have that debate. Because when these college kids are being told, if you have one point of view and it's only this diversity and equity and inclusion, so long as it's not a conservative viewpoint, then they go into the world thinking that that is exactly what is real, and it's not.
No
so
doubt.
We need to actually take a step back.
Right.
I think the FIRE system is a great way for us to start looking at these universities of who's promoting free speech and who's not. And I'm proud to say University of Florida is a great shining example of.
Well played, Kat. Get in the University of Florida. We appreciate that. Kat Cammack, always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.